Good day everyone. In this video, I am going to talk about and discuss exercises 7 and 8 in our lab manual. Exercise 7. External and internal anatomy of the toad. How do we know if it is a frog or a toad? Toads are warty looking, covered in little lumps and bumps, while frogs are sleek and smooth. Toads also virtually always have dry skin, whereas frogs look wet even when they are out of the water. Toads are mostly seen on land, especially on dry areas. They cope much better with dry conditions than frogs, as their skin is more waterproof. Frogs lose moisture a lot more easily, and so are rarely seen too far away from water, which explains why they always look moist. Frogs have long legs, longer than their head and body, which are made for hopping. Toads, on the other hand, have much shorter legs and prefer to crawl rather than hop. How do we know if it is a male or a female? Male and female frogs or toads can be distinguished from each other with the following features. First, the first finger of the male is very much swollen during the breeding season. The male has also dark pigmented areas at the angles of the lower jaws on the ventral surface of the head. And lastly, the female is generally bigger. Let's now move on to the external parts of the toad. The body is divisible into two regions, the axial and appendicular. The axial region is composed of the head and the trunk, with almost no neck at all. The appendicular region is composed of the forelimbs and hind limbs. Let's start on the axial region. The head. Snout. Located at the anterior end of the head that is triangular in shape and bordered with the anterior part of the upper jaw. The nostrils, or external nares. The eyes. They are provided with the upper eyelids and lower eyelids, and the transparent covering, which is an outgrowth of the lower lid, known as the nictitating membrane. The panic membrane, which is a circular area behind each eye, also called the eardrum. Brow spot. It is a tiny white spot at the mid-dorsal part of the head between the level of the eyes, which are very distinct in the frog, not in the toad. Now let's move on to the trunk. This is divided into two regions, the thoracic or chest region, which is the anterior half, and the abdominal or lumbar region, the posterior half, which the anus and sacral hump is located. Toads and some frogs and salamanders have special defensive organ located on the thoracic region. These are called parotid glands or Poisson glands. These are elevated structures of the skin just behind the tympanum. It can secrete a number of milky alkaloid substances, depending on the species, known collectively as buffotoxins, which act as neurotoxins to deter predation. The appendicular region. Forelimbs, the anterior appendages. Each limb is divided into segments which corresponds with our forelimb. These segments are as follows: upper arm, middle forearm, carpus or wrist, manus or hand, fingers, also called digits, and prepollex, which is a short stump on the inner side of the hand and are usually 4 in number. Hind limbs, the posterior appendages. Each is also divided into segments as follow: thigh, shank, tarsus or ankle, pes or foot, toes or digits, web, which is a membranous extension of the skin connecting one toe to the other, and prehalox, which is the small sixth toe. This may be missing. Now we look into the visceral organs of the toad and frog. There are the two coelamic cavities that can be found in toads and frogs. These are the pericardial cavity and the pleuroperitoneal cavity. The pericardial cavity. This body cavity is located at the thoracic region. The small cavity holds the heart. The heart. It is an organ enveloped by two transparent membranous tissues. In toads and most amphibians, they have a 3-chambered heart. The heart is composed of 2 anterior atria, the left and right atrium, and 1 posterior ventricle. The left atrium. It receives oxygenated blood from the lungs, carried by the pulmonary veins. The right atrium. It receives deoxygenated blood from the different organs carried with the vena cava. The ventricle. It is the cone-shaped part that receives both oxygenated and deoxygenated blood from the atria. Now we move on to the pleuroperitoneal cavity. This body cavity is where most of the organs of the viscera are suspended by their respective mesenteries. Let's know more about the organs in this body cavity. The lungs. It is the primary organ for breathing. They are big, thin-walled sacs and can be seen inflated or collapsed. Next, the liver. It is a reddish-brown organ that is considered as the largest gland in the body. It secretes bile that is important for the body's digestion. This organ is divided into 3 lobes, the right lobe and left lobe, and the small median lobe. Now we have the gallbladder. This small round sac functions as a bile storage. It is located at the ventral surface of the median lobe of the liver. The stomach. It is a bag-shaped, muscular, slightly curved sac posterior to the esophagus. This organ secretes substances that aid in chemical digestion and also mechanically breaks down food. It is divided into 2 regions. The cardiac region, a wider anterior portion of the stomach which joins the esophagus, and the pyloric region, which is at the lower portion of the stomach. Next is the small intestine, a long, narrow, and coiled tube that is responsible for the digestion and absorption of nutrients. This organ has 2 portions. The anterior portion is called duodenum, while the posterior coiled portion is called the ileum. The pancreas. It is a long, thin, irregular yellowish organ suspended in the omentum connecting the stomach, duodenum, and liver. It produces enzymes to aid digestion. The large intestine. This straight club-shaped, usually dark-colored tube stores and solidifies the waste product from the digestion process by absorbing water. Its anterior enlarged portion is the rectum. The posterior narrow portion is the cloaca, the common chamber for digestive, excretory, and reproductive products. Next, the urinary bladder. It is a membrane-like bilobe sac that helps in eliminating waste in the body. It is ventral to the posterior end of the large intestine. The spleen. It is a rounded dark red gland that functions as a filter for red blood cells and responsible for the active immune response. It is the largest organ in the lymphatic system and is embedded in the mesorectum. The mesorectum is the mesentery which suspends the large intestine to the dorsal body wall. Now we have the kidney. It is a flat, dark brown, elongated organ that is responsible for the filtration of bodily fluids. It is also responsible for the reabsorption of essential ions and nutrients, and for regulating acid-base balance and electrolyte concentration. The testes, a pair of elongated cylindrical yellowish bodies lying on the ventral surface of the kidneys that is found only in male toads. The fat bodies are finger-like yellowish bodies that is only known as corpora adiposa. It is attached to the anterior end of each testis and is only found in male toads. These are areas in the body containing stored energy needed for hibernating, metamorphosis, and for mating. Next, the ovaries are dark organs sometimes filled with eggs. When not filled with eggs, they are small, flattened, pale, and irregularly shaped organs. They are attached to the ventral surface of kidneys and are only found in female toads. Lastly, the oviduct. They are paired white coiled tubes lying lateral to the kidneys and are only found in female toads. Let's now move on to exercise 8, respiration and breathing. Respiration. It is the process of exchanging gases between the external environment and the body. It is different from breathing because breathing involves the physical process where you inhale and exhale air in and out of the lungs, while respiration is the process of breaking down glucose to produce energy, which is used by cells to carry out the cellular function. Let's now talk about the respiratory system of a toad. Toads are capable of two types of respiration: continuous respiration, which gas exchange occur on the toad's thin membranous skin, and pulmonary respiration, which gas exchange occur in the lungs. Let's move on to the respiratory tract. The first part is the larynx. It is a round or ovoid structure with cartilaginous walls and is also known as a voice box. Next is the glottis. It is a slit opening of the larynx. It is a valve that controls airflow in and out of the respiratory passages. The vocal cords. It is a pair of delicate white bands. Each is located at the side of the glottis. Sound is produced by the vibration of these vocal cords. We also have the lungs, which is a pair of big, thin-walled sacs also known as the primary organ for breathing. They are located at the anterior portion of the pleuroperitoneal cavity. Covering the outermost portion of the lungs is the thin visceral pleura. It is lined by simple squamous epithelium. Next are the alveoli. They are small, thin-walled chambers richly supplied with blood capillaries where gas exchange occurs. Lastly, the bronchi. They are a pair of short tubes from the larynx. They act as highways for gas exchange, with oxygen going to the lungs and carbon dioxide leaving the lungs through them.